afternoon and welcome to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles and I am your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of Deep South Texas. Got a great program lined up for you today. Our San Diego correspondent, Salvador Rivera, is going to join us in just a little bit to talk about a couple different topics, but the big draw on today's program is that a little later in Border Report Live, he's going to be, he has a pre-recorded interview that he had with Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva and the situation that's going on as she kind of gets tossed around in limbo as they see what happens if she's going to be sworn in to start representing the people of her congressional district. So we're going to hear that conversation in just a little bit. But first, as always, we begin today's program with a look at what's trending across the border, starting with Border Patrol agents in at least 5 major cities across the nation are set to be temporarily replaced. Now, the change will take place in Denver, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Phoenix, and San Diego. ICE officers in those locations were relieved of their jobs last week and moved to other positions within the agency. The sources told our partners at News Nation. Border Czar Tom Homan says he's working with White House advisor Stephen Miller to increase deportations. Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino, who is running Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago, says their operations are all legal, ethical, and moral. Fox News was reporting the change in staffing comes from competing factions within the deportation enforcement, with the border czar and the head of ICE facing off against DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and the Border Patrol chief. Now, sources tell News Nation they believe ICE's current enforcement approach is not producing the number of arrests that the president wants, but Bovino's broader methods appear to be what the administration is looking for. Also happening, hundreds of Chicago students staged a walkout and protest march on Tuesday morning opposing Operation Midway Blitz, which we just spoke about. The students, who come from one of Chicago's most predominantly Latino neighborhoods, walked down to their classrooms shortly for a rally speaking out against ongoing immigration enforcement. The neighborhood where the school is located is among the hardest hit Chicago communities by the immigration enforcement operations since early September. Now, just a week ago, there were chaotic scenes as people in the community faced off against federal agents, and in one incident, agents fired tear gas at crowds. Students say they took part in the rally because families are scared to leave their homes, scared to even walk across the street. Now, some are also calling for Chicago public schools to allow hybrid and remote learning options, citing safety concerns. But the governor, J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, turned down that idea and said that students are actually safer at school. Time now to bring in our San Diego correspondent, Salvador Rivera, to talk to us about something that we really wanted to talk about yesterday, but unfortunately ran out of some time there. And I'm bringing him in now to tell us some of this reporting that he's been working on. Hey, Salvador.
Hi, Rudy. We're talking about biometrics. It's a data gathering system that will be implemented by CBP, Customs and Border Protection, at all ports of entry, airports, and seaports. And this is a way to basically keep track of who's going in and coming out of the United States. The CBP says this is a way to amplify security here in the United States. But anybody who is a non-citizen will be photographed and have his or her fingerprints taken as they come through a port of entry, as they are processed. So this begins December 26th. There are a lot of concerns with this program, in particular privacy concerns. Who gets the data? Who will share this information? What happens to the information once it's gathered? One attorney from Texas was telling us that CBP plans on storing the data for up to 75 years. So people are concerned about what's going to happen because they're going to be tracking people as they come into the country. Let's just say you overstayed your visa, and all of a sudden you show up at an airport or some casino, because they already have all this biometrics too. And believe me, this information is shared by everybody, including the government. So let's say you were here on a seasonal worker visa and you decided to stay in the country, perhaps found somebody you like, you got married, you have led a totally separate life, and then all of a sudden you show up at an airport and they know where you're at and they'll stop you and perhaps deport you. Now, the problem is that this biometric stuff will also be gathered on the way out of the United States. A lot of ports of entry, like San Isidro, already have cameras set up so they can document who is going out of the country. And let's say you show up on their database and say, hey, so and so was supposed to be out of the country 6 months ago or 2 weeks ago. At that point, they could physically stop you and then to detain you and ultimately deport you, which would make you ineligible for a visa at another point down the road. So there's a lot of concern, Rudy, about how this information will be used, how it's being gathered, and how long the information will be kept by U.S. authorities.
Now, I do have to ask, you said, they're going to be taking pictures as you cross over the border in the other direction. Like, let's say my mom, for example, who likes to go visit family in Matamoros, just across the border in Brownsville, about a 3-minute ride over the bridge there. Is it, she is a citizen of the United States of America. Are they going to be taking her photo as well?
Well, it's they're saying only non-citizens. It's likely that they will take her picture, but they'll just probably delete it once they find out that she is a U.S. citizen. But this applies to all non-U.S. citizens. This could be somebody with resident status, some sort of a student visa, agricultural visa. So that's what the people that they are going after, the people that they will track. But a lot of ports of entry, including here in San Isidro, on the way out, even before you get to the Mexico side, there are gates that are not manned all the time, but they're set up with all the technology. There's cameras there. So conceivably, they'll catch you driving out, and then somebody can red flag you. And then at that point, they know you're going in or out. Or let's just say also, this is another scenario. On the way in, you keep coming in every day, and you have a resident green card, as it's called, and they will decide, well, this person does not live in the United States, as it is mandated for resident aliens. You are supposed to live, for the most part, in the United States. But if they find out that you're crossing the border daily, then they're going to say, hey, you know what? This person does not live in the U.S., and they'll give them reason to detain you and then ultimately take your visa, deport you, and then you will likely never be able to come back into the United States legally.
I know you. We were kind of talking before the program today, and you had mentioned one of the attorneys that you had spoke to. What are our attorneys specifically saying are like the legal battles around this issue?
Well, one that concerns is, does this violate the Fourth Amendment? Is it the legal search and seizure? They're saying that this will likely end up in court, and it'll be argued that this violates the Fourth Amendment. The big concern is privacy. What happens to this data? Big Brother watching over us. Who gets to see this information, how long it will be kept, and then what it will be used for. So this is a big concern that attorneys have, including this lady that we spoke to from Texas just a few days ago.
And you were kind of mentioning the Fourth Amendment there. We talk about for example, I'll use my mom as an example again, crossing over into Matamoros. Let's say they take her picture, realize she's, a citizen, so they kind of dump it out of, where that data and information was supposed to go. But is it just deleted? Do we have any of those answers yet for this program?
But those answers are not there yet. There's a lot of unknowns, a lot of gray areas that will have to be worked out. And will they ever be made public? I mean, do you trust your government completely to keep and secure your information? That is a huge question that has been around for a long time.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of Fourth Amendment advocates and constitutional lawyers and scholars have raised this issue many times with just American citizens alone. So it should be interesting to see how this gets thrown in the mix in that arena when it comes to your constitutional rights and privileges afforded to you here in America, whether you're a citizen or not. Persons is the key word there. Not that I'm a constitutional scholar by any means, but pretty clear and forward right there. Before we take a break, kind of tell us a little bit about your conversation that we're going to be playing here in just a few moments.
Okay. Well, as you said earlier, Adelita Grijalva won a special election a couple of months ago, actually early September. And she's been waiting in limbo to be sworn in. And until she does that, until she is sworn in, there's nothing she can do. She has an empty office pretty much, but she really doesn't have constituents. She can't answer phone calls. She can't help them. So she is sitting in what she called the Twilight Zone, waiting to be able to get to work and do something for the people of Arizona's 7th Congressional District, which encompasses pretty much all of the border between Arizona and Mexico. Now, she is saying that politics are very much in play here. Speaker Mike Johnson does not want to swear her in because guess what? She will have the deciding vote on whether to release the Epstein files. Of course, the Epstein files apparently or reportedly implicate President Trump that he was involved with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted pedophile. So she says, I'm ready to go to work, but Mike Johnson is saying not so fast. He has said that this has nothing to do with the Epstein files, and he will swear her in once the government shutdown comes to an end.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to that conversation. If you are too, go ahead and stick around because Border Report Live will be back in 1 minute.
Of Border Report Live. Thank you for joining us. We are about to hear from a very special guest. She is Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva from Arizona's 7th Congressional District. She was elected last month via a special election, but she has been stuck in limbo in Washington because Speaker Mike Johnson refuses to swear her in. Congresswoman, take us back to last month. Why don't we start there, to the euphoria, the excitement that you felt knowing that you were going to go to Washington to continue with your dad's work?
Yeah. So, September 23rd, very exciting. We broke history, broke the glass ceiling, and electing the first Latina from Arizona to go to Congress. And so there was a lot of excitement. And, also it's very emotional for me personally because my dad is amazing. And, the thought of having to be compared to him is always a scary thing. And so I think that there's, the emotions were all over the place. I would much rather have my dad than have an office. And so all of this happened very quickly. But, votes were canceled on the 29th and 30th, and I thought we were going to get sworn in on those days. And then, canceled the following week and canceled the following week. And here we are. Today is 35 days since I've been sworn in, and there were 12 different times that I could have been sworn in on a pro forma session. There were 2 Republicans on April 1st, April Fool's Day. They were sworn in. They were elected. 2 Republicans, and on April 2nd, they were sworn in, less than 24 hours from the date of their election. And here I am, 35 days and waiting. And so we have broken the record for waiting the longest because the speaker refuses to swear someone in.
Well, I had the good fortune of meeting your father. He's a great man. Tell me what he would say about what's going on with you, how you are being treated in the halls of Congress.
Well, no te dejes, mijita would be a big one. And, you just keep fighting. And you keep talking. You talk to anyone who will listen about what is going on and how this is not just, it's not fair, it's not right, it's not constitutional. And you continue to talk about it. And I know that, Speaker Johnson has been asked many times about me, which I'm sure drives him crazy a little bit because, he doesn't have a good answer. Every excuse that he's given has been debunked by something he has done. Whether the Senate passes a CR or not has nothing to do with what the House is doing. We're 2 separate, entities there. We should be negotiating amongst ourselves on a CR that actually could work, or, maybe do a correct budget. That's all this Congress has done is like little piecemeal things. It's not helping. It's not working for the American people. And in just 3 days, there are going to be millions of Americans that are not going to receive SNAP benefits because of these political games that are being played.
So what are you able to do right now? I'm assuming you have an office, but do you have the equipment, the materials to be able to do some work for the people of Arizona's 7th Congressional District, which encompasses, by the way, pretty much all of the border between Arizona and Mexico?
Yep, all 3 ports of entry are in CD7. Someone brought it up, which kind of hurts my feelings, but it's true. I don't have constituents until I'm sworn in. I can't provide any constituent services. We cannot open up an office in districts. I don't have an operating budget. So I got keys to my dad's office in DC, which is empty, to printers that I can't print to because I don't have, I mean, there are protected databases, federal databases that you don't get access to until you're onboarded, till you go through ethics training, till you actually have some training to do them. It's not just like, here, let me hand you a federal computer and now you have access to everything. That's not the way it is, and it's not the way it should be. So there's very little that I can do. I am still going around, just like I did on the campaign, and meeting with people and talking to them about how these impacts are going to hurt them, because honestly, it's good for me to better understand that. But I can't take constituent calls. I mean, what am I supposed to tell them? Go and talk to your senators, Gallego or Kelly, because I can't help you. That's essentially what the situation is.
Have you been able to speak with Speaker Johnson, or maybe ask for an appointment or anything like that? And has he been receptive to you approaching him and maybe having a heart-to-heart conversation about what's going on?
Yeah, I tried to do that. I called 2 different times and didn't receive a call back for those calls. I did send a letter, and then like 3 days later, Attorney General Mays sent a letter. I did receive a call from his chief of staff the day that Attorney General Mays filed suit. So at this point, I don't think it's advisable for me to have a conversation with him, because we know that it's going to be taken out of context, manipulated in some way. Early on, I thought, if he just got to like see my face and maybe make a connection that I have 3 kids, I have a husband, I want them to be a part of the swearing in, and this back and forth is just not something that I can do. And it's not right. It's not just for Arizonans, but he has me in this limbo, I think, because I feel very strongly it's because of the Epstein files, and that I would be the 218 signer to the Epstein files. And, he has, I think, been given instruction to do everything he can to keep those under wraps.
That was going to be my next question about the Epstein files and you having the deciding vote. So will we ever see you with your right hand, your other hand on the Bible, saying, I am ready to do this job?
Well, one would hope so, yes. I mean, eventually the House has to go back into session, but I think it's noteworthy that the House in 4 months has worked 19 days. In 4 months. So it's not just me that is getting hung up in this like weird Twilight Zone limbo moment, but it is, so many people are scratching their heads going, so what do you all do then? I mean, everyone's getting paid. Why aren't they working? And there is a lot to do. There are appropriations bills. There's a lot to do that we're not doing right now in the House because Speaker Johnson refuses to call in the members to get to work. So this is not normal. It really is unprecedented. This is the longest shutdown, and there doesn't seem to be any end in sight. So there are millions of people that are going to suffer as a result of these political games that are getting played by Republicans.
When you do get to work, what are your priorities? What do you want to accomplish maybe the first couple of months while you are in Congress?
Well, there are several bills that I want to co-sponsor that have to do with supporting public education and protecting our environment, improving our economy, equal pay. There are about 35 pieces of legislation that I want to add my support to, in addition to signing the Epstein file discharge petitions. There are other discharge petitions. One of them has to do with rolling back the executive powers that Trump has right now. Those are emergency executive powers that really we're not in any state of emergency that he should be able to just unilaterally make decisions like that. I don't know if that would impact Trump, respectfully, because he doesn't go through Congress to appropriate anything. He is, bulldozing historic, buildings, are the people's White House. And so he, was declaring war on people without any due process, giving away billions of dollars to other nations without any kind of process and coming through Congress. So I do think that it's important for us to do that. But really, I'm hoping to be on education and workforce and use my 20 years experience as being on the school board and 4 years and 4 months on the Pima County Board of Supervisors to good use, and perhaps be on oversight, which will give me a little flavor of everything that's going on in Congress.
Well, I'm sure you learned a lot from your dad, too. He spent, about 22 years as a member of Congress representing Arizona, or all of us for that matter. But how is it possible to even fill his shoes? Or what are your thoughts on that?
You don't fill his shoes. Raul Grijalva will never be replaced, nor should he. He was a trailblazer and broke through a lot of people in just talking about treating people like people and speaking up for those who didn't have a voice. And he was unapologetic. He's an unapologetic progressive before being a progressive was a thing. So there's no replacing him, but I am going to work very hard. That is something that he did teach me, and he taught me a lot of things, but one of them is like, don't forget who you're fighting for. Fighting is fine, but make sure that it is for a good cause. And so for me, remembering that the people of Arizona are the ones that put me in this position, and it is a privilege that I will remember every day. That is something that I have to work as hard as I can to represent the people of this community in the way they deserve to be.
Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, thank you for joining us and for your time. And I'm sure you'll do very well in Washington, and your dad will be extremely proud of you. Again, thank you for the time you took to speak with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was a privilege.
All right.
And welcome back to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mideles. I'm your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of deep South Texas. I have one more headline that we wanted to share with you, and that is, amid growing immigration concerns, some people are not attending Day of the Dead celebrations across the country. Fear of ICE presence. Because of the fear of ICE presence, they are choosing to stay home. In many cities, the Dia de los Muertos celebrations are long-time family traditions to remember loved ones who have passed away. In Nevada, organizers say this year they've learned many will not be participating in the festivities, particularly because of ICE. An immigration attorney says he doesn't believe large cultural events like these are at risk, but for anyone who is feeling fearful, he says he understands. This weekend here in the Rio Grande Valley, there are several Dia de los Muertos festivals planned, and I plan to head to as many of them as I can to try to get a good look and speak with some organizers. So over the coming week or so, make sure to stay on the lookout for that story as we kind of put together something that's very big culturally, not just here down in the Rio Grande Valley and along the border, but in places across the country. We've actually covered this topic before a few times in the past. And actually, I'm going to bring in Salvador Rivera one more time to talk a little bit about this issue as well. Hey, Salvador.
Well, Rudy, remember that also, especially for those of us along the border, where it's California, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, we have families directly south of the border, relatives who perhaps were buried in places like Tijuana or Mexicali, and we want to go down there. And we can, because we have either resident status or we're U.S. citizens. We feel good about going. But there's also a lot of people who perhaps have visas, and they're not all that sure that they can get back from Mexico. So they're not going to participate in a lot of family traditions of going down to the cemeteries to fix the altars, put up pictures, participate with music and food and other things. So it's kind of a shame that the policies that are in place now, the fear that has been cemented now along the border prevails and keeps a lot of folks from enjoying longtime traditions like Halloween. And I'm sure that's going to happen for Christmas and even Thanksgiving, a holiday that now transcends the border. A American tradition that now is very much popular in places like Tijuana, where families also gather and enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah, definitely. And, down here in the Rio Grande Valley, we have South Padre Island, which is kind of a tourist destination. And, for people from both sides of the border, a nice little getaway to the beach for whatever holiday it may be. And I know in the last couple months, especially over the holiday weekends, we've had businesses telling our partners here at valleycentral.com, several of them, they were much lighter when it came to checking the tills at night over those holidays. So it'll be interesting to see how these really core important holidays, such as Dia de los Muertos, Thanksgiving, Christmas, start to be impacted under these fears. Thanks again for joining us today, Salvador. As great as always, our San Diego correspondent, Salvador Rivera. Really quick, did want to remind you that in case you missed Salvador's conversation with Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva, you can always catch up in audio form. You can find Border Report Live now available on Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, as well as YouTube in either the audio form, or you can watch Border Report Live on our YouTube page as well. So make sure to give it a shot. Border Report Live across all of those platforms that you see at the bottom of your screen. Like, subscribe, and give us a rating too. Be honest with us. We want to know how we can make this program better for you. For Salvador Rivera in San Diego, my name is Rudy Mireles here in Harlingen, Texas in the Rio Grande Valley. Until tomorrow, have a great day.